Hello everybody, John here from the 365-day challenge, and we're going to review three hands from the last couple days of cash games. A couple that are, one that's kind of an interesting spot, one that's more to talk about some theory, and a third one that's just a straight psychopath hand that's going to make everybody who invested in the challenge want their money back because they don't know why they invested in this fucking psychopath. So the first one's a bomb pot hand. We always got some interesting bomb pot hands. And I think I end up putting these in the videos a lot because my understanding of their theory isn't as good as normal Hold'em or Omaha. And because of that, I find myself in situations in them where I'm like, I don't know if I did the right thing more often than in Hold'em. So here's an example of one that I played the other day. We have the King 4 7 8 with the King 4 of spades. So not exactly a premium holding here. There's 135 in the pot because everybody just puts in 15 before the flops come out. And it comes 2 of clubs, 5 of diamonds, 6 of diamonds on the first board, and queen of spades, 8 of hearts, 3 of spades on the second board. So we flop a second nut flush draw on the bottom, which in these bomb pots, I haven't given an extreme amount of value to. It still has value. I mean, it's very possible the ace of spades just isn't out there, or it's in a hand that doesn't have a second spade. But when everybody's getting to see the board for free, it's a little bit less valuable to have a hand that's not drawing to the nuts. And then we have the 7-8, which is drawing to the nuts straight on the top board. So it's not a super strong flop for us. We do have scoop possibilities. If it just comes like 4 ace of spades down here, then boom, feeling nutted. But generally speaking, I'm not like super thrilled about this hand, but we're probably going to end up seeing a turn card. In any case, it checks around, we check, it checks around, and this player bets $135, the size of the pot. They get 2 callers who are not us. Fold, fold, call. And we are the most out of position person of the ones that are involved in the pot, and we do call the flop, see how the turn comes, see if we make our hands immediately, and we'll see how it goes. Going to the flop, there was 135 in the pot. Going to the turn, there is 675. So I don't mind paying the 135, knowing that if the right kind of cards come, we can easily get heads up all in on the turn. So let's see what comes out. It's going to be an offsuit jack on top, and a 9 of spades on the bottom. So we make our flush on the bottom, we miss our straight on top. The plus side on the top board is that the diamonds didn't get there, so we're not dead. Like if the diamonds get there in top, then we just assume our straight draw is just not even good, even if it gets there. We make our flush on the bottom, but it's still the second nut flush. As an example, if it went something like I check, this guy pots, this person calls, I would probably just fold. Once again, though, this is why I put bomb pots in the videos, because I'm not sure that that's correct. It's just what I would probably do. I play these kind of conservatively if I can. But when this happens, it goes check, 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 check. And we get to see the river for free. Kind of interesting. On the top board, the queen of diamonds comes out, so the flush gets there. Our straight draw misses. We have like no value on this board whatsoever, basically. On the bottom board, it is the 5 of hearts or whatever. It's not a spade or anything like that. So we maintain the second nut flush on the bottom board. We don't have anything on the top board. Interesting position. I go ahead and bet $200. And the reason behind this bet is that I would just like everyone to call. If I bet $200 and all of these people call, I think probably we're going to get half the pot. It's a cheap price. We can try to get an extra $400 chopped into the pot. It'd be 600, but one of them is going to win the top board, so we can get $400 worth of dead money. Everyone checked the turn, so it doesn't feel like people are super excited. The diamond did get there, which is why I think if I was replaying this hand, I would just check, because somebody probably made diamonds on the river, and they're gonna be pretty excited about this river. So I'm kind of opening up the pot by betting 200 here. So I think that's a mistake. But the theory behind why I did it was, if it just goes call, 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 we're probably going to win the bottom board, and we can get some extra money in the pot. So I bet 200. This person raises to 1,075. This person calls 1,075. And this person folds. So now we have a big decision. It came back around to us. We have no value on the top boards. We have no chance of scooping. And all we have going for us is to decide if the second nut flush is going to be good on the bottom board. This is a tough situation for me. I feel like you're going to call here and get scooped. Generally speaking, just on this general board, I should say, I feel like you're going to call and get scooped here a lot if you call. And I would consider folding. The reason that I didn't really consider folding in this specific hand is that when the flush got there on the bottom board, everyone checked. And I just think it's very, very rare in a bomb pot game like this, and the kind of like loose players that we have here, for someone to make the nuts on the turn and not bet it. Just seems really bizarre to me. And then since the top board got there in a couple different kind of ways, as far as I'm concerned, on the river, it feels like maybe these guys, so one of them could have something like a weak spade flush and a weak diamond flush, the other one with the nut diamond flush. Things like that are definitely possible. The other hand that I was definitely thinking about was pocket queens, who would have been pretty excited on this flop, a little bit less excited on these turns, but then feels all right about their hand, at least on the river. Might come along here. So I don't think too long. Honestly, I really think that if anyone had made the nut flush on the turn, they probably would have bet it, but I don't feel confident enough to re-raise or anything like that. So we call the 1,075. I am correct. The king of spades flush is good. This player had the naked ace of spades and then a king high diamond flush. And this player had the ace high, or this player had the ace high diamond flush. This player had the ace of spades and a king high diamond flush. I think he had jack 10 as well, so like had like a straight down here with a king high diamond flush, and no good. The two essential nut flushes chop up the money. So we get a win in that pot, but it's kind of an interesting one. I think I made at least one mistake in it, but an interesting hand. Our second one is, this one I put in the video because I want to talk about some theory. So when I play live, I am a kind of, in many ways, like loose aggressive player. I play a lot of hands. I call a lot with weak hands pre-flop. I see a lot of flops, especially because we're playing so deep. A lot of times the games are like 400, 500, 600 big blinds deep. Sometimes even more. We saw the other day that a lady bought in for 5,000 big blinds in a game we were in. So when the stacks are that deep, I like to play a lot of hands. But if you do that, the good players that you're playing against will take advantage of that by 3-betting a lot when you're in the pot, or pre-flop, by 4-betting you a lot. They just will be all over squeezing your calls and taking advantage of the fact that they know that you might be calling a raise with like 7-4 suited. So in order to counteract that, I also do a lot of just calling with really big hands pre-flop. And this is going to be an example of that. So in this hand, the under the gun player raised, there was a $10 straddle on the button in this hand, and the under the gun player raised to $40. I just called with 2 aces from under the gun plus 1. 2 other players called. And for the record, this thing I'm doing with aces here, I've done this a lot in the last like 2 weeks. Not just with aces, but with kings, with queens, with jacks, with ace king. I do 3 and 4 bet people, but I do a decent amount of this flatting as well, so that whenever people are in this specific situation, like the situation that villain 5 is in this hand, when there's a raise and a bunch of calls, and they know that at least a couple of these guys are probably very loose players that might have weak hands, this makes a great spot for villain 5 to squeeze. And just showing up with a couple of these types of hands might tame them a little bit in the future. So in this hand, villain 5 re-raises to $120. It folds back to the under the gun player, and the under the gun player folds. Now I have a decision. If I want, I can just call and I can continue kind of slow playing and trapping. But at this point, there's already like over $200 that's not ours in the pot. This feels like an all right time to just set the record straight, put in another raise. And if this guy has something like kings or queens, he's probably getting it in with us anyway. Our hand looks kind of weird. And if everybody just folds, I think we're pretty happy to take the like $250 that are already in the pot. It's not too bad considering we're probably sitting on a stack of about 2,000 at this point. We could pick up like 10-15% of our stack. It's a little risky going to the flop with only $300 in the pot and $1,900 behind with aces. So we just decided to pull the trigger. We make it $260. And this guy, hold on a second. It goes call. This is very weird. It goes call, call, all in for about 1,200, call, and call. And this person eventually finds a fold. This player, villain 2, is just a very like rich loose guy. He just wants to gamble and he doesn't care, and if he feels like gambling, he's going to gamble. So this all gets all in, and we end up winning a very large pot here. Villain 2 had 10-9 offsuit, and just does not get there with the 10-9 offsuit. And villain 5 had ace-king. So we end up scooping a pretty decent sized pot here with the aces. But just showing that you can set up and do these kinds of plays when you're playing this many big blinds deep against a bunch of loose players. Generally speaking, you're gonna have to do some weird stuff every once in a while. And this kind of play is mostly just to protect me from some of the other regs in the game who notice who's playing too loose and they try to get a lot of squeezes and stuff in. This is my protection from that. And in this hand, it just happens to work out. We get in a pretty big pot and win a bunch of money. This hand was from a few days ago, but it's an interesting one. Okay. This last one's the psychopath hand. I'll do the pre-flop action first, and I'll explain to you what happened in this hand. And I'll tell you this: when you've been doing something for a really long time, and poker is something I've been doing for a very long time, sometimes some things just feel a certain way to you, and I'll explain what things felt like in this pot to me, and why I played this hand the way that I did. I do think that this pot is not necessarily well played, but it is something that in the moment I felt like there was something there and went for it. So I raise on the button into 3 limpers, so 3 people had limped. Let's just say it was... Let's just say it was limp for 5, limp for 5, fold, limp for 5. And I make it 20 on the button with Jack 5 of hearts. I do this stuff sometimes because a very common result of this kind of pot is call 20, call 20, call 20. On the flop, I bet 60, they all fold. And you just win some money. And then when you make hands, obviously you're on the button, so it's fantastic. In this instance, the small blind re-raises to 60. Big blind folds. This player calls the 60. This player folds, and this player calls the 60. And when it gets back to us, it's 40 more. There's a lot in the pot. We're going to at least see a flop. So we call the extra 40, and there's $252 in the pot going to the flop. And the flop comes ace of spades, 5 of spades, 4 of spades, ace 5 4 all spades. The small blind bets 200 and it goes fold fold. So now it's on us. And here's what goes through my head. So I played with a lot of live players in my life, and I've played with a lot of them, especially in the last 2.5 weeks. And this bet sizing is very weird for them. Live players, unless they're like pros, live players just don't really make pot size bets or big, like near pot size bets. It'd be very common for the preflop raiser in this spot to bet like $120 or $100. Their bet sizings just tend to be way too small. When this guy like pots it almost, I mean it's 80% pot, but when he makes a huge bet like this, for me, it makes me feel like this player is scared and they have a hand, but they're very worried about what's on the board, is the way that it feels to me. And so my immediate thought is something like ace king with the king of spades, ace queen with the queen of spades, even maybe a hand like aces. Something that likes their hand but is very scared of this board. It could even be something like king of spades, or kings with the king of spades, queens with the queen of spades. They like their hand, but there are some cards that can come that they're going to be worried about, is kind of the feeling that I get from this. So in any case, I call here, but my call here is entirely to bluff later in the hand. We never think our pair of fives are good. We're not at all trying to pick up a second pair of jacks or whatever. The call is entirely because I think there's some cards that can come off on the turn in a river that are going to make this an easy steal. And I can't tell you honestly why I'm so confident in that in the moment. When I was doing this, I was just, the hands I just listed off to you, I was like, this guy almost for sure has one of those kinds of hands. There's going to be some runouts here that he's going to be worried about, and I'm going to be able to figure out from his bet sizing and stuff which runouts those are, and we're just going to take this away later. And it's a real like psychopath mentality about how to play this hand, and can turn into a real spew every once in a while. But I do make these plays on occasion when something feels off to me. And something about the way this guy was playing all day, coupled with this bet sizing on this board, just rang badly to me. So I call, and the turn there's $652 in the pot. And the turn is a 3, not of spades. So now, this continues with my thought process, because our opponent bets $300. Now here's the thing, if you go back, I named a whole bunch of hands on the flop that all seemed like kind of strong hands, right? But if you go back and look at those set of hands, how many of those hands really want to call a raise here? Ace King? Are you excited about calling a raise on Ace 5 4 3 3 spades with Ace King? What about with kings with the king of spades, queens with the queen of spades, even pocket aces? Are you excited about calling a jam with pocket aces right here, with 3 spades and 4 to a straight on the board? But he's still betting pretty aggressively. I mean, this isn't as big as his flop sizing, but a $300 bet in the game we're at is one of the biggest bets that's going to happen in the course of an hour or two. He's betting super aggressively on a board where there's not very many hands he can have that really should be that excited about this board. The only hand that we have to really be worried about here is something like King Queen of Spades or Queen Jack of Spades. Those kinds of hands might have 3-bet us. I'm not necessarily sure with this particular player, but those kinds of hands could have 3-bet us, and they're excited about this board. But I think those represent a very small percent of the range. I think a lot of what this guy's doing this with is a pair with a flush draw of some kind, and this board is not exciting for him. So then I have to make another decision. Are we raising right here? If we're planning on stealing this pot, are we raising right here, or are we going to see what peels off on the river? The theory is, if this guy has something like Ace King with the King of Spades, if I jam here, is he just going to frustration call, even though it's not really a very good call? Is he just going to frustration call because he has the King of Spades? Maybe. And part of the reason that this hand is like not really, very excitingly played from me is if a spade just peels off on the river here, then we're just in a lot of trouble. Like do we have a good way to take this pot away from this guy anymore? I don't know. But in any case, when he bets this turn, I decide that the smartest play to make our hand look strong and to win this pot is to just call. So we just call again, and the river peels off the 7 of hearts. So the flush draw does not get there. The board's now 4 straighted in 2 different ways. And on the river, he bets 400, which is just stupid. For me, at least given the overall range that he can have, I think betting 400 on this river, there's 1,252 in the pot. We have about 1,500 each behind. He bets 400 on the river. He has about 1,500 behind the 400. He bets 400 on the river, and I think betting this river is just really stupid. With any hand except for like King, Queen of Spades or Queen, Jack of Spades or something. It just opens you up so much, and it's basically exactly what we want. He's just continuing to try to get value out of a hand that shouldn't be betting, something like Ace King or even a set. You shouldn't even be betting a set on this river, I don't think. You could bet fold it, I guess, but in any case, I execute the plan. The greatest cards have run out for the plan that I had hoped to do starting on the flop. So if the greatest possible cards run out, then you should probably execute, and we do. We make it about 1575 on the river with an all-in. Our opponent tanks for one of the longest periods that anyone has ever tanked against me in real life. It was many minutes. He tanked for a very long time. He looked in severe pain the entire time he was doing it, and eventually he found a fold and showed pocket 4s, which was not a hand that I expected to be in his range. I would have thought aces was a possibility, but I would not have thought that he would have 3-bet 4s from the small blind. But he did. He flopped a set, and on the scariest board of all time, he lays it down on the river for 1,175 more, and we pick up a pretty nice pot. I don't do a play like this very often, but something about the sizing that he was using and the way that I had seen him play just felt completely wrong to me. It felt like this guy's putting money into a pot that he's not going to be able to defend later. And so we went for it, made a complete psychopath play, and picked up a big pot off of this guy. He begged me to show my hand afterwards, and we showed him the Jack 5, and it pretty much threw him off. He played for like 30 more minutes. He seemed super frustrated the whole time, and then he left. And I don't blame him, because it's not just that you got bluffed here that really hurts. It's that my hand is so bad that I was clearly always going to be bluffing him. Like, it's not like I was in here with the Jack 5, like, hoping to make trip 5s. That's not really ever what was going on. I'm only ever in this pot because I think I can bluff you later in the hand. And so it's kind of a painful one to take from the other side. So we end up taking this one down as well. Like I said, I don't make too many plays kind of like this, and I have a hard time even explaining necessarily why his bet on the flop just like set this thing off in me, where I was just thinking to myself, this is a guy with a hand he's not going to be able to defend later in the pot, and we're going to be able to take this away. It just really felt like a hand that was like a pair and a flush draw, or even a set. But on a 3-spade board, it just felt like at some point you're going to be able to take this away from this guy. So in any case, that's how it went down. It's not like a pot that if you gave it to me to do again, I would probably be like, hell yeah, you got to make this play. But in the moment, I felt a certain way about the hand, and it worked out. So that's the kind of psychopath you're backing if you're somebody that has a 1% share here. And we're about to go in and play some more today. So good luck to us there, and I'll talk to you guys again soon.